Hello, people. Welcome back to the Hopeless Romantics Hotline. My name is Allison Kanosky, and I apologize for how inconsistent episodes have been coming out. I'm trying to get a consistent schedule, but I've been trying to adjust to high school for the past couple of months, and yeah, I should probably say this. I am 16 years old, so because I'm 16, I'm a sophomore in high school. I am very busy, so I don't always have the time to film, but I will make sure to start being a little bit more consistent. I'm planning on trying to get an episode out potentially every week. We'll see if I can stick to that. Let's see if I can stick to that. But I also will say that this YouTube channel as a whole will be used specifically for episodes of this podcast, my horror movie podcast, The Final Girl, and also my singing content. So it doesn't mean the movie stuff is going to completely go away. I'm still going to be doing year-end recaps, but I'm not going to be doing reviews like I used to. I just really don't feel passionate about making those reviews anymore, so that's why I'm going to be doing more of this kind of content, because this is honestly what I prefer doing. So, the subject of today's episode is Hallmark movies. I know it's literally just became November. So now's the time where I get to talk about Hallmark movies. So Hallmark movies, in my opinion, Hallmark movies are funny to me. Mostly because they are so tropey, and those movies that you can just turn your brain off and watch. There's just so little care into the plot actually making sense that it's honestly so funny. Now, my aunt is obsessed with these movies, and she always wonders why I don't like them. And so it's honestly with Hallmark movies, I feel like even though I've only ever seen maybe 2 in my life, I feel like I almost know the tropes so well that I could literally just explain them all to you right now. So, honestly, this episode's gonna be very, unstructured, and I'm just gonna be going on a bunch of rants about Hallmark movies, because honestly, this is honestly what I talk about now most of the time with my mom, and honestly, it's really funny. Okay, so Hallmark movies have very, very specific tropes attached to them. So, I thought, why not I explain them to you? I was just ranting about Hallmark movie tropes in the car yesterday with my dad, and my dad is just sitting there so viscerally confused. He's just like, how do you know all of this? And I'm like, just listen to me. So, first we have the big city girl moves back to her hometown trope. This one, we have a girl who works a corporate executive job, and one of 2 things happens. 1, her boss sends her back to her hometown for some reason. Or number 2, her best friend, who, despite the fact that they are best friends, is never seen again in the film, minus the emotional phone call scene. So, and also a big thing to keep in mind, the girl has a fiancé in the big city. So, she visits her hometown for 2 weeks, she falls back in love with her town, and she also hasn't been back to the town in 10 years, and she falls in love with her high school sweetheart, and in the end she ends up deciding to quit her corporate executive job to move back to her hometown. And she ends up dumping her fiance, and she ends up with her high school sweetheart, and all is well in the end. Okay, the next one I like to call the cookie battle. Hallmark movies, I feel always have a baking element to them. So this trope is basically the girl runs a bakery and enters in a Christmas cookie competition or something like that. And the guy, he's like a big New York pastry chef. He's always like a big pastry chef. And they fall in love, and then turns out the guy was trying to sabotage her, and then they compete in the competition, and they both end up winning the competition. And then they're in love, and they're together at the end. This one I like to call A Fiancé for Christmas. Okay, so here's why. So this one, it always begins with the girl, and she's having lunch or dinner with her fiancé, and she gets dumped by her fiancé. And she then panics because she's like, I told my whole family that I was bringing my fiancé for Christmas. And what ends up happening is she ends up meeting some random guy and, like, makes a deal with him to pretend to be her fiancé for, like, a week or something. And then they end up falling in love, and the parents really like him. But this always happens. The fiancé who dumped her shows up at her parents' house and says that he wants her back. Parents find out that she made a deal with a random guy to pretend to be her fiancé. They fight, and then all is well in the end. They actually get engaged, like they're in love, like you get it. Now, this one is, so you're probably like, why do I call this one A Fiancé for Christmas? So I really like watching parodies of Hallmark movies on TikTok and Instagram. One of my favorite people who does these is a girl named Marie Stella on Instagram and TikTok. I'll tell you, her Hallmark movie parodies are so funny. And this one particular video she did with basically the trope I just described, and like she always like does like the movie poster at the end, and she named the movie A Fiancé for Christmas. So that's why I always call this trope A Fiancé for Christmas. So this last one I'm going to explain to you is probably by far my favorite one to explain to people. And I like to call this one the How Did They Marry Royalty trope. So, this one goes one of two ways. So, the first way it could possibly go is you have a princess or prince who doesn't want to be royalty and doesn't want to handle royal duties. So they run away and they meet a random stranger, and they end up living with the random stranger. They forget that they need to go back because they have an arranged marriage, and then the other person shows up and makes their big declaration of love in the middle of the wedding, and they get married, and yeah. And this one is so funny. Oh my goodness. So, this one's just really funny. You have a girl, she works in a family member's bakery, and the family member hires a guy he just doesn't know what he's doing. He has no idea how to do literally anything, to the point where you wonder how this guy even got hired in the first place. Then it turns out he's a prince, and the girl and the prince fall in love, and then it always ends in them getting married, and all is well. Yeah, honestly, whenever I explain that trope to anybody, I feel like I always lose people really quickly. And yeah, I was also explaining these tropes to my mom last night, and my mom was just like, my mom doesn't know whether or not she just wants to laugh or not. But yeah, the thing is, with Hallmark movies is, I understand why people enjoy Hallmark movies, is because, like, they're just so not serious that, like, it's kind of like a turn your brain off kind of movie, and then you just kind of get to relax and, like, enjoy yourself. You don't really need to do a lot of deep critical thinking about what you're watching. And the reason that I personally don't like these movies is just because they're just never written very well. It's all, like, again, it's very, like, cliche and tropey, like, I don't know, it's just not usually my cup of tea. But if you love Hallmark movies, no hate to you. Like, that's the thing. Like, I will never, like, hate on somebody just because they like Hallmark movies. Like, I understand why they hold a lot of enjoyment for some people. But yeah, personally, it's just not for me. I know this was a very short episode, but honestly, I love talking about Hallmark movies. It's like one of my favorite things to discuss around the holidays, so I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Bye!